Hello friends, Cowboy Jobu here with the Jobu Report. And as always, thank you guys for watching, commenting, and subscribing to the Jobu Report. Today, I'm a little under the weather, so forgive me. But it seems like Tony Romo to Denver is heating up a little bit. Let's go to First Take because they're always talking about the Dallas Cowboys and see what they say.
The rumor mill is swirling around Tony Romo and the Denver Broncos right now. Last night, he took this photo with Broncos GM John Elway at a victory party for House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy. Now, a few weeks ago, NFL insider Ian Rappaport, Rap Sheet, how we doing, revealed Romo's #1 landing spot was Denver. And then on Sunday, Broncos wide receiver Emmanuel Sanders adding fuel to the fire when he sang Romo's praises on NFL Network, saying he thinks that he could go to a championship with Romo at the helm. Stephen A., does it make sense for the Broncos to be so supportive of Romo?
Not to me. And it has nothing to do with Tony Romo's abilities. It has everything to do with his availability. When you think about the growth of Trevor Siemian, Paxton Lynch, and what they surmise he's capable of, you look at a guy like Tony Romo, if you're making it very, very clear to everybody, we're going for the Super Bowl right now. Not that Tony Romo, there's any reason to bring him on board for that, because we all know he doesn't produce in the postseason. We all know that his 78-49 record and all the exploits that he's put forth and put on display over the years was during the regular season, because come postseason time, he's been allergic to prosperity, Will Kane. We all know this. However, if you're sitting up there and you're saying, we want Tony Romo because we're trying to go for the Super Bowl now, although I don't agree, I can't argue that it would make sense because Trevor Siemian and Paxton Lynch ain't the immediate answer. But in the end, I don't trust his availability. And as far as I'm concerned, because you can't trust that he'll be available, you're just basically stalling the growth and maturation of Trevor Siemian. And as far as I'm concerned, you don't do it. You go in a different direction, not to mention the fact that he'll probably cost too much.
So the answer is no.
The answer is no. I said no at the beginning. See, I usually start off my point, I make my point, and then I sit there and I explain. You understand? Unlike some people.
I build to the point. Get a max through my inductive approach.
That's right. That's
very sophisticated. I know it's not for everyone.
Professorial.
You want this one or you want me to go? I don't know where you are.
Well, you can go. You start. Go ahead.
All right. It's crazy talk. It's insane. You're talking about one of the top 10 quarterbacks over the last decade.
In a regular season.
You're talking about a top 5 defense in Denver. The one chink in this argument, the one problem in this argument that doesn't make any sense is the Denver Broncos offensive line, which is, I think, rated for Pro Football Focus 24th, 27th. That is a problem. Now, I've been very critical of John Elway as a GM, but I think one day you were out, I was sitting here with Max, and Mark Schlereth made a very compelling argument, and I can be persuaded, I'm a rational man, that I've been too hard on John Elway as a GM, and I'm willing to accept that premise, except for in one area, and that's the management of his quarterback position. He has consistently been lauded as a genius when it comes to this position and consistently fallen short of that label. If Tony Romo is not the move for the Denver Broncos, I can make no sense of how they've handled the quarterback since Peyton Manning has left. Tony Romo, elevate Trevor Siemian to Tony Romo, not close. Whatever criticisms you may have of Tony Romo, it's a football field away from Trevor Siemian. It makes you a legit contender if they can keep him on his feet. This team, I think, can be a Super Bowl contender with a quarterback like Tony Romo. And if John Elway doesn't look at his roster and see the assets, I have Trevor Siemian and Paxton Lynch. That's kind of like having two of the same thing. Potential, but no certainty. Bring in Tony Romo for 2 to 3 years, bring in a higher ceiling, and develop the potential underneath it. In the meantime, by the way, when you don't pick Siemian, Lynch, that becomes an asset. Trade it away. You better the entire team.
To Stephen A's point,
Right.
the reason none of that works is because of Tony Romo's health. Now, I love the fact that the Broncos are vocal about liking Tony Romo. First of all, it says very good things about Romo, the quarterback, that the league recognizes that if you need a quarterback and you can get Romo, even if you don't have an offensive line, quarterback can make an offensive line better. Go get this guy. Maybe you can win a Super Bowl. Mess around right now. But
yeah, we know you went to the florist and you ordered some roses for Tony Romo. We got that a long time ago.
The idea of 2 to 3 years is, to Stephen A's point, he's not available like that. I mean, his back keeps his collarbone, his back up and down his back, and discs and all kinds of compression, all kinds of things keep knocking him out for to the backbone. The backbone's connected to the backbones. Lots of bones in the back, and they're all broken in Tony Romo. The point is, he's not available. And what happens if you listen too closely to your players, and you're also right, they need an offensive line, particularly if you have an injury-prone quarterback. when you listen to players, and I'm glad that they want Romo, it shows that these guys want to win, and it shows you Romo's really good. But when you allow players to be the GM, you can wind up trading high draft picks for aging salary cap hits, which is essentially what Tony Romo would likely be for the Broncos.
I want to be clear. I'm the only person that likes this here. None of you are
I
into
like
this?
it. I
like
Okay,
it. Let me get back to him.
Okay.
Because I just want to sit up there and say that your debate skills, you're very, very slick. I like that because you know what he does, Max, is 1 minute he sits up there and he's all factual. He tries to give you the impression, but then when he has his emotions, he tries to just gloss over that like they're facts when they're not.
Which one was emotion?
I'm gonna tell you, I'm getting ready to go there.
Okay.
Tony Romo in
They're
the playoffs.
alternative facts.
Tony Romo in the playoffs. Really? Tony Romo, 2 playoff victories in 10 years? Really? Now, we have to think about the Denver Broncos here. We have to think about what John Elway built. We have to think about Max Kellerman's point that he's made on numerous occasions when he talked about the absence of Brock Osweiler. Why? Because John Elway, according to Max Kellerman, you're not a superstar, you're not a franchise guy, you're a mid-level dude. Why can't I pay you like a mid-level dude? As opposed to throwing the whole kitchen sink at you just because you're my quarterback. So Max pointed that out. Why? Because he said that Elway is building something here. Well, if you're building something there and you're talking about growth and maturation, well, I'm sorry, who impedes that? It's Tony Romo, because Tony Romo ain't no long-term solution. Tony Romo is an immediate solution, and that's only during the regular season. You can't sit up there and say he's that dude during the playoffs, because even you
That's the
have
emotional
to
part?
doubt. That's right, because even you have to doubt that Tony Romo is going to be available for the postseason. You don't know whether or not he can make it.
I'd actually feel very comfortable if someone traded for him
That's
somehow, like right before the postseason began. He could maybe stay upright for 3 or 4 games, win you a Super Bowl on a good team.
So don't sit up here and talk like Tony Romo is somebody that's reliable for the postseason. He has 2 playoff victories in 10 years. 10 years!
Okay, you ready?
That is a fact.
You ready? Okay, the difference between me and you and most everybody in the media is I'm honest when I'm emotional. I'll tell you when I'm biased.
I'm not honest about my emotion. Really?
Actually, it's on your sleeve.
Really?
You're right.
Thank you.
I take that
Thank
back.
you. Lies. More lies
You wear it on
by
your
the
sleeve.
alternative fact talker. Go ahead.
You wear it
Go
on your
ahead.
sleeve, sometimes in
Go
the
ahead.
form of jerseys that don't belong to your team.
Stephen A. is
You're
calm.
right.
Stephen A. is always calm and unemotional.
Never
Period.
biased.
Always, that's your
Period.
See, I made a mistake. I'm dealing with emotion here. You're right. I'm arguing
fact.
on that level.
In fact,
I'm
lethal.
talking to the
Lethal
pure.
combination.
I'm talking to
Lethal
pure
combination.
id here. Just emotion. So let me explain something
Just
to you here.
emotion.
Emotion.
Whatever.
This is the situation. It's not an argument that Tony Romo is going to be available from week 1 to week 17 and then on into the playoffs. I can't make that promise. Although I think you have highly overplayed his injury.
36 years of age with multiple injuries. Stop it.
But he's had
That's
a
a lie.
whole
You just
year
lied.
Max actions like his back is it a chronic condition. It's not a chronic condition.
Well, of course it doesn't seem that way.
What's your
When you sitting up in
definition
a
of
suite with
chronic
Jerry
recurring?
Jones or shooting baskets
Well,
at Cameron.
I gotta go on that one.
Sean's back
I'm
doesn't
sure.
seem a problem.
He's hurt every year with a back
Well,
injury.
Okay, here come the facts. All right, deal with this.
We just gave you
I
some,
just
but go
told
ahead.
you that I'm not arguing that his availability goes from week 1 to 17 and on into the playoffs for a Super Bowl run. But what I am telling you is I know how to balance risk-reward. I do know how to balance assets, and you have 2 of potential guys in Simeon and Lynch. And here's what the thing is. Romo is not as expensive as everybody thinks. He's a $14 million base salary for whoever trades for him. That's the 23rd ranked quarterback. If you make $14 million a year for the Denver Broncos,
Sure.
more for the Cowboys, then you are buying essentially the 23rd most expensive quarterback in the league.
And?
Are you telling me the risk reward on buying the 23rd most expensive quarterback in the league isn't there with Romo? And by the way, if he does get hurt, you've got Lynch or Simeon
First of all,
waiting there.
First of all,
That's right.
on first
So
take.
what I'm telling you is,
First of all,
I know how to
First of all, on
balance
first take,
assets.
Will King doesn't get to ask rhetorical questions. They actually have to be answered. And when you ask that question, and you ask that question about Tony Romo in terms of what he's worth, it's not about dollars and cents. It's about how that's going to impede the progress of Trevor Siemian. We're looking at Trevor Siemian like he's a guy that can't get it done. This was his first year. It was his first year.
And he was about as good as Brock Osweiler.
He was about as good as Brock
Lynch has more
Osweiler.
upside.
Who's to say that he's not going to be better next year? Demarius Thomas is on the record. Emmanuel Sanders is on the record.
I
You
love
have
this
others
move.
on the record saying,
I
hey,
want it
it's
to happen.
possible. So when you look at Tony Romo, we're not going to question the talent that he has, but we will question his availability. We can question his postseason production. These are facts. They're not emotion. They're just emotion.
What would you give up for Tony Romo is the question. Because if you're saying a 5th round draft pick, go ahead. Just pay pay the salary, I'll take a shot. But if you're talking about a second-round draft pick or something like that, no.
You know
Not for a
what?
guy who's going to go get hurt
Why'd you
4
just
games
tell
into
the
the year.
truth? You just one of those guys that wanted Tony Romo up in there just like Jerry Jones did. You were upset that Dak
is how
Prescott
honesty
was the dude.
works. This is how-
You revealed yourself. You exposed it
I
weeks
like
ago.
Tony Romo. I think
You
Tony.
wanted him in there. You wanted him
I'd
in
like
there.
to see him get another shot too. I want to see if he's anything
Because he's
less than
extremely
wanted him in there,
underrated.
but Dak
Let Will
Prescott.
answer all these questions, people. Three
Because
people
he's
asking
extremely
questions at once.
underrated, Molly. From people like Stephen A. Smith, who latch on to a few anecdotal elements
few.
in moments in his career.
A few.
You're right. You somehow managed to perpetuate this into a popular narrative that Tony Romo isn't clutch, isn't great.
Don't
when the
talk about
stats
the
do
playoff
not
It's
back
not a
you
few,
up.
it's a couple of playoff wins. It's a couple that he's
in
latched on
10
to.
years.
Whatever
In
you
10
think.
years.
Here's the argument, guys. If you keep pulling me on to his potential to get injured, you'll win the debate. But I'm not having a debate with you about whether or not Tony Romo ever gets injured. I am having a debate with you on whether or not the Denver Broncos should risk to get the reward for Tony Romo. The risk of a draft pick, which you can get back by trading Simeon
I'm
or Lynch.
fine with that.
You can get that pick back. Thus, all you're paying for Tony Romo is the $14 million salary,
I'm
is
with
the
you.
23rd ranked quarterback
Well, here's where-
salary in the
here's where I
NFL.
will concede.
And what do you get?
Here's where I will
What do you
concede.
get?
I'll concede.
Something way better
I'll
than Simeon.
concede. Are you saying that Tony Romo is a guy you should take that risk on strictly for next year?
Yes.
Or are you saying that he's a guy you should bring in with no regard for the others that you have in place because they're so worthless and that's going to be the case
I have
2-3 years down the road?
expe-
Because Tony Romo, to me, is a 1-year solution at best.
Two. And I have
That's what I think,
exponentially
too.
more faith in Tony Romo than Trevor.
And finally, by the way, if you're the Dallas Cowboys and you're only going to get not a first-round pick for Tony Romo, and he's a great backup quarterback who you might need, why would you?
No, they need the cap relief.
Before
They
we
need-
go to break, our producer, our friend Kevin Reeder, tried to get by us without letting us know it was his birthday.
Oh, really?
A couple days ago. We